The day Julian Kingsley's childhood sweetheart ran me over. I ended up in the ICU and she ended up in the police station. Julian, meanwhile, spent the entire night comforting his tearful little sister. When he finally remembered to visit me, the first words out of his mouth were, "Will you sign the letter of leniency?" It was just an accident. Quinn didn't mean it, he added. She was so scared. As her older brother figure, I couldn't just leave her alone. Scarlett, you've always been the kindest person. I turned my head to stare at the deep red sunset through the hospital window. Julian, the world is just one giant Amazon warehouse. Julian frowned. What? I looked back at him. Some people are just oversized packages. He had no idea that the crash had damaged my brain, severely impairing my emotional center. I'd lost chunks of my memory, and my personality had completely shifted. Gone was the hopeless romantic who'd loved him for 8 years. Now I was Scarlet Chaos Gremlin Hale. Julian blinked in shock. Scarlet, what the hell is wrong with you? Sorry. I waved my hands apologetically. I don't live in Notre Dame, so I'm not very good at talking to white knights. Shock and anger crossed his face, but I wasn't done. Selflessly doting on a single younger woman while you have a fiancé, staying the night with her no less. You're a real angel of charity. Don't make Quinn and me sound like that. He snapped, his face flushing red. Not a white knight. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Fair enough. You're just generous with other people's money, which makes you a straight-up bad seed. You. He stood up abruptly. I gestured eagerly. Oh, don't stand on ceremony. Sit. Though honestly, Jules, you're terrible at this. I sighed. You come visit someone who just got out of the ICU, and you can't even be bothered to bring a fruit basket. He looked at me and sneered. A fruit basket? You don't deserve one. She doesn't deserve one. Dr. Kingsley, you must have a terrible memory. You and Scarlett were supposed to get married this month. A crisp voice cut through the tension from the doorway. I turned to see my cousin Nora Bennett pushing a wheelchair into the room. Scar, Dr. Hayes wants you down for an EG. She brushed past Julian, shooting him a withering glance. Now, if you'll excuse us, we don't have room for your holier-than-thou attitude here. EG. Julian glanced at me dismissively. Looks like the crash really did scramble your brains. Scarlett. Yep. I pointed a finger at him. I'm the one with brain damage, but you're the one with amnesia. Who's the one who hit me again? He froze, his face twisting with embarrassment and guilt. He reached for my hand. Scarlett. Nora cut him off coldly. He remembers perfectly well. Too bad she's his precious little girlfriend. You two have been bullying Scarlett even before the wedding. You two deserve each other. You heartless monsters. Julian's face burned with shame. He stood up abruptly and said coldly, I'm not going to argue with you when you're injured, but you will sign that letter of leniency. Otherwise, I won't pay your medical bills. He looked pointedly at Nora. Staying in the ICU this long doesn't come cheap, does it? You, Nora sputtered with rage. Julian threw me a think about what you've done look and stormed out. Look at him, I said, pointing at his retreating back. He's graduated to threatening people with money now. Cute, as if he's the only one who can pay. Does he think the driver's family is dead or that we don't live in a society with laws? Nora sighed, glancing from Julian's back to me. Let's go get your test done first. My muscle strength and reflexes were fine. I had minor spinal damage, but I was recovering remarkably well. It's a miracle, Dr. Ethan Hayes marveled. Do you remember how badly you were hurt? But you should be able to walk tomorrow. Sure do, I replied seriously. I got launched into the air, did a 720 degrees Thomas spin 3 times, and face planted into a flower bed. Maybe you should forget that, he said, scribbling on my chart. How's her brain damage? Nora asked anxiously. Dr. Hayes propped his chin on his hand, staring at the EG results thoughtfully. It's abnormal, but she talks and acts completely normally. She's nothing like she used to be, Nora insisted. Before, she was so soft-spoken, completely wrapped around Julian's finger. But now what? I leaned forward eagerly. Now you're way more clear-headed, Nora said, her voice trailing off. but sometimes I think you're a little too energetic. It's like you're a completely different person, ma'am." Dr. Hayes nodded seriously. "This could be personality change from the brain injury or a psychological defense mechanism after major trauma. How bad are her injuries?" Nora pressed. "We're going to have to go to court with the driver. You know, I'm classifying it as a grade 1 misdemeanor assault." Dr. Hayes tapped his keyboard. When the ambulance brought her in, I thought for sure she'd be looking at a felony-level injury, but her recovery has been extraordinary. The neurological damage is almost negligible, though her scalp lacerations and tears meet the misdemeanor standard. He turned to me. "How do you feel?" "Great," I said, swinging my legs in the wheelchair. "I feel like I could get up right now and dance to Koi Cute Gomen." I started singing. "To Koi Cute Gomen." Nora clamped a hand over my mouth. "Umar eat kiss hot gomen." Dr. Hayes hummed along. "Not bad. Your brain's definitely active." He continued. "Nora says your personality changed. Do you notice it?" "Not really," I said honestly. "I remember most things from before the crash, but it's like watching someone else's life on TV. Like I'm just a spectator. So now I feel like the protagonist of a tragic romance novel." I grinned maniacally. "Dr. Hayes, are you the devoted male lead the system assigned me?" Nora and Dr. Hayes stared at me in surprise, then looked at each other and shook their heads simultaneously. "Refer her to psychiatry," Dr. Hayes said, handing me a referral slip. "Definitely delusional." I meant every word. Though 8 years of dating, other guys spoil their girlfriends like princesses. Julian Kingsley spoiled me like the tragic heroine of a soap opera. Looking back on my life, I could have written a 63-page PDF about all that I put up with. I waited 3 years alone while he studied abroad. I found his flirty texts with Quinn before he left, but I forgave him. When he came back and told me he wanted to start a private hospital, I quit my job as a designer to be his assistant. No title, no shares. I worked my ass off to build Eleanor Kingsley Hospital from the ground up. But it was Quinn who stood next to him at the grand opening. As Julian's net worth skyrocketed, the internet was flooded with rumors about him and Quinn, even though we were engaged. A mutual friend warned me that Julian and Quinn had attended the same university while he was abroad. The list goes on and on. I was obedient, self-sacrificing, the poster child for 1950s domesticity. The only thing I didn't do was bear him a son. And what did I get in return? Open infidelity, losing both my money and my heart, nearly getting killed by his mistress, and not even being his first priority. All I had to show for it was a useless fiancé title. I mourned my 8 wasted years with that piece of inside. Scarlet Hale, how could you be so stupid? I must have been cursed in a past life. There are so many good guys out there, and I only had eyes for Julian, who was about as useful as rotten lettuce. This crash had knocked the hopeless romantic right out of me. It was a blessing in disguise. If he was so in love with Quinn, they could be miserable together. I was out, but I was still getting that settlement from the Quinn family. I'd lost enough already. There was no way in hell I was leaving empty-handed now. In the psychiatry office, I told the doctor dark jokes. "Did you know Qin Shi Huang was the best influencer ever, doctor?" Because all the books he liked went viral and everyone started reading them. "Doctor, 30 restraint, 30 amusement, 40 karma points won. Did you know the difference between Jesus and a picture of Jesus is she's experiencing cognitive dissonance from the brain injury?" The doctor typed furiously on her laptop. "In short, she's not psychotic. She's just got a few wires crossed." Nora leaned in cautiously. "But isn't having wires crossed the same as being psychotic?" "Severe cognitive dissonance can be classified as psychosis, but she's not there yet," the doctor said without looking up. "Get plenty of rest, and we'll monitor her and lay off the dark jokes." On the way back to my room, Nora looked like she wanted to say something. When I asked her what was wrong, she finally blurted out, "Scar, were you serious about what you said to Dr. Hayes?" "Dead serious." I whistled. "I'm the tragic romance protagonist who's here to kick the asshole's ass, beat up the mistress, and ride off into the sunset with the devoted second lead." "Stop talking nonsense." Nora rubbed her temples. I know you have brain damage. Scar. But honestly, I think it's the best thing that ever happened to you. I've been telling you Julian was no good for years, but you never listened. If this crash is what woke you up, then it was worth it. I couldn't agree more. He smiled to her. But things are different now. This is the new Scarlet, the dark Kerwin Scarlet, the me Scarlet. Nora rolled her eyes. She'd gotten used to my nonsense over the past few days. Hey, Nora, I said, why haven't my parents come to see me? I almost died. Where's Dad? Nora froze. When she looked at me, her eyes filled with sadness. You don't remember what happened with your family. Maybe it's better that way. Something clicked in my head and my stomach dropped. I touched my head and fell silent. Things could have been worse. Miraculously, I was discharged a month later. Excellent, Dr. Hayes said, running through my tests. Full motor function. No permanent disability. This is an exceptional recovery. Her sister's been taking amazing care of her, the nurse said, removing my 4. She's better than most parents I've seen. In a month, neither Julian nor my family had shown their faces. Nora had taken the entire month off work to be with me, and her company had finally had enough. I'd seen her sneak into the corner to take angry phone calls last week. This week, the calls had stopped. The Quinn family was going to pay for that. The police had come to see me while I was in the hospital. I'd told them in no uncertain terms that I would not be signing a letter of leniency. Representatives from Eagle River Group, the Quinn family's company, had also stopped by, and they'd left some gifts and left. I knew they'd be back. While I was recovering, my old boss called to fire me, and Nora started looking for a new job. The only thing Julian had done was pay the initial medical bills, but that was fine. The only thing that was good for now was being a cash cow. The day before I was discharged, Julian finally lost our little game of chicken. He called me, sounding exhausted. Scarlett, will you just sign the damn letter? I'm swamped with hospital work and Quinn's mess. I can't handle this right now. Can you just be reasonable for once? Don't talk to me about reasonable, I said, munching on a banana. Talk to me about money. Rich guy. Then mow me $500K and we'll talk. I could feel him seething through the phone. I laid it on thick. Julian, I lost my job. I'm broke. You need a letter of leniency to get your little girlfriend out of trouble. I need money. It's a fair trade, isn't it? Sometimes I really wonder how we ended up like this, I said, genuinely confused. We started dating freely. For God's sake, you really are the worst. His voice turned angry again. I'm not having this conversation with you. Scarlett, you've been impossible since you woke up. Wrong answer, I said in a robotic voice. Only money can make me reasonable. Lots and lots of money. I hung up before he could argue. If you and Quinn are serious, tell her family to get their act together. The leniency is mine to give or take. Capitalists are so cheap. Julian only sent me $10,000. What a loser. But it was enough to pay the rest of my hospital bills. When I could walk properly again, I went to the police station for the mediation. To my surprise, Quinn was there. It was the first time I'd seen her since the crash. Quinn had fled the scene of the accident and been arrested the next day. Her family had bailed her out quickly, though, which is why she was standing in front of me now, screaming her head off. You, why aren't you dead yet? I raised an eyebrow. You're still alive. So why should I be? Her mother held her back. But Quinn's eyes were wild with rage. If it weren't for you, Julian and I would be happy together. I turned to the police officer. Is she bipolar or something? The officer looked pained. Ms. Quinn has some mental health issues. She's out on bail for medical treatment. Quinn struggled against her mother's grip, screaming at the top of her lungs. Why won't you die? Just die already. The woman, who looked like her mother, dragged her away, muttering, I told you not to bring her. I turned back to the officer. You tell me, does this look like someone I should forgive? The officer cleared his throat awkwardly. Ms. Hale, we couldn't reach your family before. We called you here today to discuss the letter of leniency. How much money am I getting? I asked. According to the agreement we reached with Ms. Layla Quinn, the Quinn family will pay your medical expenses, pain and suffering, and lost wages totaling $50,000. We can add more if necessary, the woman who dragged Quinn away said, walking over to me. She was wearing an expensive designer silk evening gown with sharp features and a cold, imperious look. I'm Layla Quinn, Quinn's mother, she said, barely looking at me. I want this settled today. Name your price. Where's the money? I asked, sizing her up. You sign the letter first, and we'll transfer the funds, she said impatiently. Oh, so that's how we're playing this. Fine. I smiled politely. I'm not signing anything. Layla's eyes narrowed dangerously. $50,000. You think that's enough to buy my forgiveness? Mrs. Quinn, that's pocket change to you. I turned back to the officer. What happens if I don't sign? The officer looked like he had a headache. She'll be prosecuted. Hit and run is a felony, even with her mental health issues. She won't get off completely. I said, name your price. Layla snapped. $6,070. Whatever you want. $1 million. I said, are you insane? Layla's perfectly made up face twisted with rage. Who do you think you are talking to me like that? I frowned. You're the wife of the Eagle River Group chairman. You can't come up with $1 million. I was actually going to ask for more. You. Layla stepped forward and raised her hand to slap me. Wow, real classy for someone in high society, I said, and immediately dropped to the ground. Help. The chairman's wife is assaulting me. Assault. Ms. Quinn, calm down. The officer pulled Layla away before she could hit me. From the look on his face, I understood I was the one in the right here, but no one in Talon City dared to cross the Quinn family. Just as I was wondering what to do next, the door burst open. Quinn ran in behind him, still crying. Scarlett, stop this nonsense. Sign the letter and we'll talk about this later, Julian said, his eyes bloodshot, glaring at me. Quinn threw herself into his arms, sobbing. Julian, I'm so scared. Watching them cling to each other, old memories flooded back. There are no coincidences in life, only premeditated cruelty. I remembered the early days of building the hospital. Julian was busy schmoozing investors and buying land. I stayed up nights going through paperwork, negotiating with contractors, and securing loans. I had just graduated college. I was shy, quiet, and knew nothing about business, but I did it all for him. The Kingsleys were a medical dynasty. Julian's great-grandmother, Eleanor, had been a famous obstetrician in the 1920s, but the family owned a pharmaceutical company run by Julian's grandfather. His uncle was the heir apparent. Julian, with no shot at the family business, had decided to start his own hospital. He told me his father and uncle fully supported him. If I make this work, they'll have to take me seriously, he'd said, full of youthful idealism. I don't want to live off my family's money. I want to build something of my own. That was his dream, and I'd given up my own future to help him achieve it. I worked 18-hour days. I negotiated a killer deal on the construction that saved the hospital hundreds of thousands of dollars. Exhausted, but thrilled, I called Julian to tell him the good news. A woman's soft voice answered the phone. Hello, she purred. Julian's passed out drunk. I'm taking care of him. My blood turned to ice. I knew that voice instantly. It was Quinn. Don't worry, Scarlett, she giggled. You should be thanking me. What kind of girlfriend leaves her man alone when he's drunk? She hung up. Seconds later, a photo came through. Julian passed out on a hotel couch with Quinn's arms wrapped around him. She was smiling directly at the camera, a taunting look in her eyes. That was the first time I'd seen her. When Julian came home, he swore had nothing happened. Eagle River is our biggest potential supplier for medical equipment, he said. I can't afford to offend them. Our families have been friends for generations. She's just a kid. Don't be ridiculous. I'd cleaned up the apartment and said, okay. I later found out everyone knew how Quinn felt about Julian. Everyone except me. Apparently, Julian had never liked her. Not really. She was too spoiled, too immature. But that was before he'd learned how much power money could buy. Quinn was the princess who could give him everything. I was just the Cinderella who'd helped him build his castle. I found more and more evidence. Perfume on his shirts, lipstick on his collars. Just busy. He'd say, it comes with the territory. As the hospital grew, he came home less and less. When he was home, he was always texting, smiling to himself. Just work stuff, he'd say. Don't overthink it. I was such an idiot. I'd smile and say I wasn't overthinking, and bottle everything up inside until the day of the hospital's grand opening. Julian, the founder and CEO, stood side by side with Quinn, the representative from Eagle River Group, for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. They looked perfect together, the golden couple, and I, his fiancé, stood in the back, invisible, a joke. They'd been standing together like that back then. They stood together at the peak of his success, and they stood together now, at her lowest. I was always the outsider. Okay, enough reminiscing. It's bad for my blood pressure. I looked back at the two of them, one exhausted, one crying. Unbelievable, I said to Julian. Then I turned to the officer. I said, I'm not signing. That's final. Scarlett, Julian grabbed my arm. You've changed. Why are you being so unreasonable? I took a deep breath. Protect your breasts. Don't internalize the anger. Externalize it. So I slapped him across the face. The crack echoed through the mediation room. Julian froze. I stared at him, fainting outrage. You've changed. Julian, I told you I'm not signing. Why are you being so unreasonable? Quinn shrieked and lunged at me. How dare you hit my Julian? I prepared to drop to the ground again, mentally debating between a BMW and a Mercedes. Before she could reach me, a sharp voice cut through the room. Quinn. Quinn froze mid-lunge and cowered away. I almost fell over anyway, but Julian caught me. I stared at him in surprise. A man walked into the room. He came straight up to me and bowed slightly. Ms. Hale, I apologize profusely for my sister's behavior. She's been very poorly raised, and that's my fault as her older brother. He stood up. I looked at him. He was wearing an immaculate suit with sharp features and calm, penetrating eyes. He looked familiar. Somehow, Julian's voice was panicked. Quentin, would you mind stepping outside to talk? Ms. Hale, he asked politely, but there was an undercurrent of authority that was impossible to refuse. I thought for a second, then pushed Julian away. Sure, why not? Julian grabbed my arm again. Quentin, this is between me and my fiancé. I'll convince her to sign. Quentin raised an eyebrow. Are you the driver's next of kin? Julian sputtered. Then this has nothing to do with you. Quentin said coldly. Quinn is my sister. I'm her next of kin. If anyone is going to negotiate with Ms. Hale, it's me. Quentin, this is none of your business. Layla snapped. Oh, Layla. Quentin turned to her as if he'd just noticed her. Father is already furious about Quinn's little incident. I was hoping you'd handle this, but clearly you're incapable. He turned back to me. Ms. Hale, shall we? I started to follow him, but Julian pulled me back. Scarlett, don't go with him. Please don't touch me unless you can write me a check for $1 million, I said, yanking my arm away. Scarlett, listen to me, he said, grabbing me again. First, stop being ridiculous. Now listen to me, I said. Do you think I'm a dog? Let me make this perfectly clear. Julian Kingsley, the second you left me in the ICU to comfort the woman who almost killed me, we were done. You are nothing to me. Now get out of my way. He stared at me, stunned. I took a deep breath and walked out after Quentin. Quentin took me to a fancy cafe on the 64th floor of the Pearl Tower, overlooking the city. We drank instant Helena coffee. I studied the man across from me, Quentin Quinn, director of Eagle River Group, and the heir apparent to the Quinn empire. Old man Quinn had 3 children. Quentin was the son of his second wife and had always been the black sheep. Then, a few years ago, he'd been suddenly promoted to the board of directors. At the same time, the previous heir, Quincy Quinn, had been removed from his position for unknown reasons. This man was not to be underestimated, but why did he look so familiar? First, I want to apologize again. Ms. Hale, he said, his voice sincere. Quinn is spoiled and reckless. I take full responsibility for not keeping a closer eye on her. I sipped my coffee. It was bitter. You're much more reasonable than the rest of your family. Mr. Quinn, he raised an eyebrow. Is that so? You actually apologized. I said, in the 2 months since the crash, you're the only person who said those 2 words to me. He smiled apologetically. She really is impossible. And for the record, she's not a fully competent adult. She has mental health issues. Oh, she's crazy. That's fine. I'm crazier. She'll see. I nodded. I understand. You want me to sign the letter of leniency, don't you? I do, he said, like it or not. Quinn is my sister and my father's daughter. If she goes to prison, it will damage Eagle River's reputation. I'm a businessman. I have to protect the company. What are your terms, Mr. Quinn? I said, choosing my words carefully. You're a director of Eagle River Group. Correct. He looked surprised. Yes, I want shares, I said. He almost spit out his coffee. Shares, he said, staring at me. Yep, I smiled. Let's be honest. This crash cost me my fiancé, my job, and almost my life. I'm broke. Eagle River isn't 100% family owned. You have other shareholders. Slip me a tiny percentage and I'll sign the letter and never bother you again. I was doing the math in my head. Even a 0.1 stake in Eagle River would set me up for life. If he said no, I'd just ask for more cash. Either way, I was getting paid. Quentin was silent for a long time. Then he looked up at me, his gaze intense. Scarlett, is this really what you want? I shifted uncomfortably under his stare. Mr. Quinn, if shares are too much trouble, cash is fine, too. I can't just give you shares, he said, looking away at the vase of roses on the table. But I have another idea. Okay, I said, confused. Before I could react, he pulled a rose out of the vase and held it out to me. Scarlett Hale, will you marry me? Me, the rose, the waiter passing by. What the actual? Is every rich person in this city insane? Nora, you have to believe me. I'm the tragic romance protagonist, and I'm about to get my revenge on the and live happily ever after with the second lead. I was pacing around my hospital room, talking a mile a minute on the phone. And it's not Dr. Hayes. It's Julian's future brother-in-law, Quentin Quinn, the heir to Eagle River Group. I was so excited I was practically bouncing off the walls. This is exactly like the books. He's been secretly in love with me for years, waiting for me to leave, and now he's going to sweep me off my feet. Scarlett Hale, calm down right now. Nora yelled through the phone. I'm not lying. He just proposed to me, I said, coughing from excitement. And I said yes. What? Who proposed? What are you talking about? He said he's known me since we were kids. He's always had a crush on me. He hates arranged marriages. But the second he saw me again, he knew he wanted to marry me. I squealed. I ship us so hard. Back in the cafe, we'd stared at each other for 3 full minutes. Do I know you, Mr. Quinn? I asked, staring at the rose. Or do you know me? I've known you since we were 8 years old, he said, still holding the rose. At the first investment meeting between Eagle River and Hale Media, you were standing next to your father, Harold Hale. My smile froze. Hale Media, the media empire my father had built. Hardly anyone knew I was Harold Hale's daughter, 8 years old. That was before I'd been disowned. I know your family has been through a lot, he said, his voice softening. And I know the crash messed with your memory, but I need you to trust me. I can take care of you now. You want shares, he said. Marry me, and all my shares become marital property. No prenup. I blurted out. No prenup, he said, still staring intently at the rose, his ears turning pink. Marriage to me comes with a lot of strings. Divorce won't be easy, but I promise you, Scarlett, you'll have all the money you could ever want and more. That sold me. I took the rose. Okay, I'll marry you. Quentin froze, then let out a huge breath of relief. Thank you so much. Why are you thanking me? I asked, confused. I'll handle everything, he said, standing up so fast he almost knocked over his chair. I'll call you. Goodbye. Wait, you don't even have my phone number. I called after him. I have it, he said, and practically ran out of the cafe. He forgot to pay the bill, so that's what happened. I finished, gasping for air. I thought he was this cool, mysterious CEO, but he's even crazier than I am. You should have seen the waiters' faces. They were all shipping us so hard. And do you know how much 2 cups of tea at Helena Coffee cost? $560. Scarlett Hale, I haven't even found a job yet, and you're already marrying some random rich guy. Nora screamed. It's not random. He's a walking goldmine. I know it's crazy, but what's the worst that can happen? I get a fancy title and a bunch of money. Hey, wait, someone's calling me. I switch lines. The same calm, deep voice came through the phone saying the most insane thing I'd ever heard. This is Quentin. Are you ready? Scarlett, I'm picking you up tomorrow morning to get our marriage license. The Talon City news cycle exploded. Quentin Quinn, the most eligible bachelor in the city, had gotten married. No dating, no engagement, no drama, just a marriage license to the victim of his sister's hit and run. I sat in our 5,000 square foot penthouse, scrolling through my phone. Look at this. Everyone's going crazy. Mystery heiress returns to Talon City. Quinn family feud heats up. Childhood sweetheart loses to the new arrival. None of that is true, Quentin said, directing his assistants where to put the furniture. I don't have a childhood sweetheart. According to the tabloids, you've been engaged to 100 different heiresses, I said, holding up my phone. In every article about Quentin's love life, there was one name that kept coming up. Stella Hale. My breath caught. My ribs ached where I'd been hit. Stella Hale, my half-sister. Harold Hale's daughter with his second wife. I hadn't seen either of them in years. Family. What a joke. Stella's way too young for me, Quentin said, with a hint of a smile. And besides, you're the only one I've ever been interested in. Wow. Smooth. I blushed. Thanks. Q. Love you. Too. He coughed, his ears turning bright red. Anyway, Father and Layla know about the marriage. We'll have to go meet them soon. Of course, I said, staring at my bank account balance and grinning. We're a team now. I've never been to rich people parties, but I helped Julian build his hospital. I can handle anything. Speak of the devil. My phone rang. Julian's name flashed on the screen. My smile faded. Quentin held out his hand. Want me to talk to him? No, I got this, I said, answering the phone. Scarlett, what the hell is this? Julian roared. Rude. You should be calling me Mrs. Quinn now. Julian, are you insane? You actually married Quentin Quinn. 100% genuine. Any other questions? I could hear him hyperventilating on the other end. He was completely shocked. Scarlett, you're crazy. Do you know what you're doing? Quentin is the future of Eagle River. You're nothing. Ugh, so loud, I said, walking into the kitchen. I dropped my phone into a pot of boiling water, put the lid on, and banged on it with a wooden spoon for good measure. When I took the lid off, he'd hung up. I winked at a stunned Quentin. Shall we go? Honey. Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Quinn and her trophy husband. Just kidding. This is Scarlett, the driver, and her very rich husband who can't drive. I never in a million years thought I'd be chauffeuring a billionaire around in his own McLaren. But here we are. I turned to him and grinned, living the dream. Ah, he said, smiling at me. Damn right. I said, I hit the jackpot. His smile softened. As long as you're happy. I know I made the right decision. I stared at him. Wait, Q, be honest with me. Why did you marry me? Was I really some secret billionaire's long-lost love? Was this actually a fairy tale? He looked embarrassed. Just think of it as love at first sight. Before I could say anything else, a black Mercedes cut us off. I slammed on the brakes. We both flew forward against our seatbelts. Julian got out of the car, looking furious. His tie was askew, and he looked like he'd just come from a meeting. Scarlett, get out of the car right now, he yelled. Julian Kingsley. I was too busy braking to kill you earlier, I yelled, unbuckling my seatbelt. What the hell is wrong with you? Do you even know how to drive? Quentin put a hand on my arm. Stay here. I'll handle him. No way. I'm going to kill him. I'd rather not have billionaire's wife murders ex-fiancé in broad daylight as tomorrow's headline, he said dryly. He sighed and said beg. Quentin got out of the car. Julian stared at him in shock. Scarlett's driving. This is her car, Quentin said coldly. I put it in her name this morning. Do you have something to say to my wife? Mr. Kingsley, your wife. Julian laughed bitterly. Scarlett is my fiancé. Like hell I am. I yelled out the window. If you're that stupid, go see a neurologist. Stop barking at me. Is that so? Quentin said, Then what exactly is your relationship with my sister, Mr. Kingsley? Julian froze. Quinn, is she's my sister, he said lamely. Funny, Quinn only has one brother, and that's me. Quentin said, if she finds out you're here, causing trouble, she'll have another episode. And if her condition worsens because of you, I don't think my father or Layla will be very happy. That hit Julian where it hurt. His anger deflated, but he still looked furious. Quentin, are you that desperate for a wife? Do you even know what kind of woman you're marrying? She's a gold digger. At least I'm not a cheating piece of who left his fiancé to die in the ICU for his mistress. I yelled. You almost got me killed. You, who do you think you are? I know exactly who Scarlett is. Quentin said, his voice icy. And as for you, Mr. Kingsley, would you like to join Quinn in jail? I'm sure she'd love the company, though I doubt the Kingsley family will bail you out. Julian paled. Just then, the police arrived. The lead officer nodded at Quentin. Mr. Quinn, everything all right? Everything's fine, Captain Lee. Thank you for coming, Quentin said. He got back in the car. Let's go. I flipped Julian off as we drove away, watching the police handcuff him to his car door. I had no idea the Quinn family was throwing a party in my honor. The entire Talon City elite was there. I felt completely out of place in my jeans and trench coat. Wow, there are so many people, I said, giving Quentin a nervous smile. His hand was shaking at his side. I told them it was just a small tea party. He muttered. He noticed me staring and looked guilty. I'm sorry, Scarlett, if this is too much, we can leave right now. Something clicked in my head. A distant memory. When I was little, Harold used to take me to parties like this. I'd freeze up, unable to breathe or move. Harold had been so disappointed in me. He'd turned all his attention to Stella, who was perfect and outgoing and everything I wasn't, even as an adult. I'd never gotten over it. Julian had been embarrassed by me and had stopped taking me to events altogether. That's why no one had known I was his fiancé. But the crash had changed that. I had social anxiety no more. Layla was standing across the room, her hand on old man Quinn's back, staring daggers at us. She nodded, and a beautiful woman in a designer gown came running over to Quentin. Quentin, she trilled. It's been so long. I saw you in Malibu last summer. Remember, you loved those beach cocktails. We should go back this year. I watched Quentin's face darken. This was Layla's doing. She was trying to embarrass me. Time to cause some chaos. I smiled sweetly at the woman. He's not going. She looked annoyed. I was talking to Quentin. He answered with silence. I said, still smiling. She ignored me and turned back to Quentin. Quentin, look at my dress. It's the new spring couture. You said you loved this style on me. What do you think? It's beautiful. I said, can I borrow it? The woman stared at me, confused. Borrow? Washington. Yeah, I'll wash it and give it back, I said, grabbing her arm. Come on, I'm way underdressed. Help a girl out. What is wrong with you? She said, yanking her arm away. She looked up at Quentin, who was staring coldly at Layla, and ran away. I don't know her, Quentin said through gritted teeth. Layla sent her to make me look bad. I glanced at his face. He was furious. Stepmothers are all the same. I would know. Quentin was usually so calm and collected, but tonight he was like a silent ticking time bomb. Let's go say hi to your dad and Layla, I said. Today is my mother's birthday, he said, his hands clenched into fists. Even if they don't care about her, they shouldn't be doing this today. Of all days, my heart went out to him. Throwing a party on his mother's birthday was the ultimate insult. No wonder he was so angry. I've always just put up with it, he said. I know I can't win, but today, I patted his shoulder. Don't put up with it. It's bad for your blood pressure, and honestly, it never works anyway. A sharp pain shot through my head. Memories flooded back. It never works. I'd put up with everything, and what had it gotten me? Kicked out of my own home. My parents' marriage had been a mistake. Harold had married my mother before he'd become successful. When Hale Media took off, he'd started cheating. The fighting got worse and worse. Eventually, he divorced her, leaving her with nothing. She'd gotten breast cancer and died when I was 10. I'd grown up in that cold, empty house, ignored by my father. He'd wanted a perfect, outgoing daughter. Instead, He got me. Then Stella was born. Perfect, beautiful Stella. I was sent to boarding school. I only came home for holidays. When I graduated high school, Harold tried to marry me off to some rich guy's son. For the first time in my life, I'd stood up to him. He'd slapped me across the face and told me to get out. I'd been 18 with nowhere to go. If it hadn't been for Nora's parents, I would have been homeless. When they died, Nora and I had become each other's family. I closed my eyes. If my mother hadn't died, I never would have been so insecure. If I hadn't been so insecure, I never would have wasted 8 years on Julian. My entire life had been ruined by the people who were supposed to love me. Quentin looked at me gently. I know, Scarlett, about your mother. I took a shaky breath. Don't you remember everything now, don't you? He said, leading me to a quiet corner. He handed me a glass of water. I told you, Scarlett, we're the same. I stared at him. There was a strange light in his eyes. We're both the ones our families threw away. I forced a laugh. Q, you're the heir to Eagle River. You were never thrown away. I was, he said, pulling me close. When I was a kid, I was less important to them than their dogs. He nodded across the room at a tall, handsome man who looked like he owned the place. That's my brother, Quincy. His mother was a real heiress, way more powerful than Layla. He was the golden child until my father found out he wasn't actually his son. My eyes widened. No way. My father cheated on his first wife constantly. They had a terrible marriage, but he never thought she'd cheat on him. Quentin said with a bitter laugh. My mother found out about Layla when I was 5. She was so distraught, she crashed her car and died. My throat tightened. I had no idea. Father blamed her for embarrassing him, and he blamed me, too. Quincy was still the heir. Layla had Quinn, and I was nothing. They treated me like garbage. I used to wish I was dead. He smiled down at me, a soft, sad smile. Then I met you at that stupid investment meeting. You were standing next to your father, looking so small and scared, like a lost puppy. I glared at him. I was not a puppy. You were, he said, grinning. But for the first time, I didn't feel alone. I saw you, and I thought there's someone else who knows what it's like. You were the only person who ever understood. He let go of me, reluctantly, before he could say anything else. I saw Quincy's date turn around. It was Stella. I froze as she walked towards us, smiling brightly. Stella had always been the princess, the perfect daughter. She looked exactly like that now, in her designer gown. Scarlett, she said, her eyes shining. Sister. I raised an eyebrow. Don't call me sister. Stella, I should be calling you sister-in-law. Actually, both Stella and Quincy's faces turned bright red. Quentin squeezed my hand tightly. Stella was just out of college. What was she doing with Quincy? Quincy had no power in the Quinn family anymore, but no one outside the family knew that. He was clearly teaming up with Hale Media to get back at Quentin, and Harold was letting him. I wondered what Harold would do when he found out his disowned daughter was married to the most powerful man in Talon City. Sister, it's been so long, Stella said, looking like she was about to cry. You've been through so much. You and Dad shouldn't have fought like that. As if I'd had a choice. I noticed people starting to gather around us. I glanced over and saw Layla watching, a satisfied smirk on her face. Quincy spoke up, loud enough for everyone to hear. Sister-in-law, we know you made a mistake and left home all those years ago, but your father still loves you, now that you're married. It's time to come home. Excuse me, I said, shocked. I could hear people whispering around us. She was disowned for being a troublemaker. How did she end up marrying Quentin? He must be really desperate. Stella grabbed my hand, tears in her eyes. It was all my fault. Sister, I should have made you apologize to Dad, but you were so stubborn. Now that you're happy, please come home. I thought back to the day I'd been kicked out. Harold had twisted the story to make me look like the bad guy, and now they were going to use it to ruin me. Most people would have tried to defend themselves, but I'm not most people. If I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me. No, it's all my fault, I said loudly. Stella, I know you're still mad at me for stealing your boyfriend, but I was just trying to help. Stella's face turned white. What? You were only in middle school. You shouldn't have been dating a 25-year-old man, I said. putting on my best concerned sister act. I tried to talk to you, but you wouldn't listen. So I did what I had to do, and then you got so mad you told Dad to kick me out. I couldn't even pay for college. Quentin, Quincy, and Stella all stared at me, stunned. The crowd was eating it up. But now you have a nice, respectable boyfriend, I said, smiling at Quincy. I'm so happy for you. Family is family, right? When are you inviting me over for dinner? Stella, is this true? Quincy said, turning to her. No, she's lying. It was her who. Stella started crying. Shoo, don't cry, I said, patting her arm. It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes when they're young, right? Quincy, you're not mad at her, are you? I turned to the crowd. All right, show's over. Nothing to see here. Just family drama. Quentin herded the crowd away. In the corner, Stella and Quincy were already fighting. Let's get out of here, Quentin said, pulling me towards the door. Wait, where's your dad? I asked. I thought we were supposed to meet him. He's not here, Quentin said. Layla planned this whole thing. She's not going to stop. We have to go. We were almost to the door when it burst open. Scarlett, get out here. It was Julian. Again, he looked terrible. He was drunk, reeking of alcohol. Layla must have bailed him out. Quentin muttered. She called him here to embarrass us. Scarlett, you cheating. Julian yelled. How dare you get married? Scarlett, do you know this man? Stella called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Perfect. Just perfect. Julian lunged at me. I took off my trench coat and slid under the nearest table. Everyone stared as I slid across the marble floor and popped up on the other side. Dr. Hayes' physical therapy was really paying off. Get back here, Julian yelled, chasing after me. I threw a cupcake at him, hitting him square in the face with frosting. Quentin grabbed Julian and punched him in the jaw. I cheered, while Layla was distracted. I ran over and grabbed her by the collar. Are you insane? I yelled. That's your daughter's fiancé. Do you want her to marry him or not? The crowd erupted. Everyone knew the rumors about Julian and Quinn, but no one had ever said it out loud. He's your fiancé, Layla sputtered, trying to get away. Please, I said, when Quinn ran me over. Who was with her in the police station? Not me. It was Julian. Ask him yourself. I turned to Julian, who was now covered in cocktail that Quentin had thrown on him. Julian, are you my fiancé or Quinn's fiancé? Think carefully. Quinn will kill you if you say the wrong thing. Quentin threw Julian to the ground. I'm Quinn's, Julian mumbled. There you go, I said, turning back to Layla. So, why are you trying to ruin your own daughter's engagement? If you don't like me, just say so. You don't have to make a fool of yourself in front of everyone. Layla, Quentin said coldly, if you hate my wife that much, you could have just told us. You didn't have to put on this pathetic show. His anger finally boiled over. His eyes were like ice. This has nothing to do with me, Layla said, panicking. Security, who let this drunk in here? Quentin put my trench coat back on me. Let's go home. We walked past Julian, who was being dragged out by security. What an idiot, I said. He let Layla manipulate him like that. He'll never work in Talon City again. Good, Quentin said. I wish Quinn had been here to see it. Layla never learns. This was so stupid. Just then, his phone rang. I have to take this, he said. Wait for me here. I waited in the garden. A soft voice came from behind me. Sister. I sighed and turned around. Of course, it was Stella. Sister, are you still mad at me? She said, looking up at me with big innocent eyes. Please come home. You're still a Hale. Don't call me sister. Stella, I said flatly. Did Harold send you? Yes, she said, looking guilty. Sister, you're still family. Blood is thicker than water. What do you want? I said. Let's be honest, she said, smiling sweetly. Why get involved in the Quinn family drama? Hale Media is our family's business. We need your help. I laughed. You want me to work for you for free. Bold of you. You don't have a choice. Sister, she said, her smile turning cold. I know your cousin Nora works in journalism. Eagle River doesn't have a media division, does it? If Nora wants to have a career in Talon City, she needs Hale Media. And if something were to happen to her while she's out reporting, well, accidents happen. My blood ran cold. Nora was the only family I had left. Harold had never cared about me, but now that I was married to Quentin, I was useful. He didn't care about family. He cared about power. He smiled ahead. Stella, let's be honest. I don't speak. Tell Harold I'll be at his funeral. That's the only time I'll ever step foot in that house again. I turned and walked away. I found Quentin by the car, and we drove off. What's wrong? He said, noticing how angry I was. What did Stella say to you? Harold and Stella threatened Nora. I said, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. They said if I don't help them, they'll ruin her career, maybe even hurt her. I've spent my whole life letting people walk all over me. I let Harold kick me out. I let Julian cheat on me for 8 years. I let Quinn almost kill me. And now they're threatening the only person who ever cared about me. I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm going to destroy them. All of them. Quentin smiled gently. Stella made a mistake. I've been planning to start a media division at Eagle River for months. I was going to surprise you. That phone call was the update on the project. My eyes lit up. Nora hasn't found you a media job yet. She's an amazing journalist. Can you consider it done? He said, and for the record, it's a nice day to make Hale Media go under. I grinned. That's exactly what I was thinking. Teach me how to do it. I want to do it myself. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. I was a college graduate. I had helped Julian build an entire hospital from scratch. I knew how to run a business. Quentin taught me everything he knew about corporate warfare. I was a quick study. To avoid suspicion from Layla and old man Quinn, I became Quentin's personal assistant. It sounded like a glorified maid, but it gave me access to all of Eagle River's confidential files. And I only answered to Quentin. My first day at work, I wore a fancy dress and heels. I felt ridiculous. Quentin walked past me and snickered. I glared at him. How do you know my size? This fits perfectly. He coughed, looking away. When you care about someone, you notice these things. Ugh, he's too smooth. I walked over to his desk, leaning over it. Q, now that we're married, want to talk about adult stuff? He blushed bright red. What kind of adult stuff? I leaned in closer, my breath tickling his neck. You know, the kind of stuff that happens between a CEO and his secretary. Scarlett, we're at work, he said, his voice cracking. We can do that tonight when we get home. Home? No, silly, I said, sitting up straight and handing him a stack of papers. Work is adult stuff. This is the logo I designed for the new media division. Take a look. He looked genuinely disappointed. It was hilarious. Nora had been having a terrible time finding a job. She refused to work for any company affiliated with Hale Media. She'd finally gotten a job at a small startup, only to be sexually harassed by her boss on her first day. No surprise there. Stella's doing. Before Nora could even call me to complain, Quentin had called her and offered her a management position at the new media company. When Nora came to our penthouse for the first time, she was terrified of Quentin. You're really my cousin's husband, she stammered. 100, I said. Relax. Nora, he's a dork. Nora shook her head in disbelief. I can't believe this is happening to us. She only believed me when I showed her our marriage license and told her about Quentin and me meeting as kids. She grabbed my hands, crying, Scar, I don't care if you're rich or poor. I just want you to be happy. I don't want you to get hurt again. Then she went to work, and she blew us all away. Nora was incredible at her job. In just a few months, she had the new media division running like a well-oiled machine. Your Eagle River skills are amazing. I said to her, Quentin, Nora, I'm so sorry, Mr. Quinn. Scarlett has always been like this. My design skills, which I'd wasted for years on Julian's hospital, finally got to shine. The logo I designed for the media division was a huge hit. Quentin gave me all the new brand design projects. All of those projects had originally been assigned to Quinn. I sent Quinn photos of Julian making a fool of himself at the party. I heard she and Julian had a huge fight, and she'd had another episode and gone back to the hospital. I'm not a villain. I just enjoy making their lives a little more difficult. Layla was furious, but she had no power in the company. She teamed up with Quincy and Stella to try and take Quentin down. They never stood a chance. Old man Quinn was starting to listen to Layla's lies until a headline broke that gave him a massive stroke. Quinton's new media company had leaked the news that Quincy wasn't actually old man Quinn's son. Now, that's what I call karma, I said, popping open a bottle of champagne. My mother died because he cheated on her, Quinton said, clinking his glass against mine. What goes around comes around. This is for her. We owe Dr. Hayes big time, I said, taking a sip. We should take him and Nora out to dinner. Dr. Hayes had been a huge help. He was one of the best doctors in Talone City, and his mentor was old man Quinn's personal physician. Dr. Hayes had warned us. He's at very high risk for a stroke. Be careful what you tell him. Thanks. Dr. Hayes, I'd said, I'll give you 200 at your wedding. Nora had blushed and hit me, but I'd seen them together during my physical therapy. They were totally into each other. I'd had to do an extra week of therapy just so they could spend more time together. With old man Quinn in the hospital, Quinton took over running Eagle River Group, while Layla, Quincy, and Stella were panicking. I decided it was time to take down Harold. Go for it, Quinton said, smiling at me, but be careful. Heir Media has been around a long time. You won't take it down overnight. Q, have I ever told you you're the best husband ever? I said, once or twice. He said, grinning, but how are you going to repay me? I got down on one knee and bowed. If it pleases you, my lord, I would be honored to be your daughter. Quinton, we're married. You don't have to do that. Nora, poking her head in the door. Is this some new kink I don't know about? Normal people don't have superpowers, but billionaires do. And being married to a billionaire made me unstoppable. I leaked stories to the press that Heir Media was the one who had leaked the news about Quincy. Old man Quinn was furious. Harold had been kissing his ass for years, and now he'd stabbed him in the back. And with Stella dating Quincy, it looked even worse. I bought every ad slot and every news headline I could get. Soon, everyone in Talone City was talking about how Harold Hale was a backstabbing traitor who was only mad that Stella had married the wrong Quinn brother. Harold panicked. He found out I was behind it, and he sent Stella to beg for forgiveness. I told her to go to hell. While Heir Media was falling apart, Quinton's new media company, Riverside Media, launched. We took over half of Hale's market share. It wasn't a total collapse, but it was enough to make Harold's life a living hell. Harold was desperate. He teamed up with the only person who hated me as much as he did, Julian Kingsley. Julian, being the idiot he was, gave an interview to a tabloid where he called me a gold digger and a homewrecker. I almost forgot about that loser, I said, watching the interview. Quinton frowned. He needs to be taught a lesson. Eleanor Kingsley Hospital was my life's work. Julian didn't deserve to run it. And let's not forget, he was an accomplice to a hit and run. We attacked on two fronts. Quinton cut off all funding to the hospital. Nora and I leaked the truth about Julian and Quinn's affair, Layla being a homewrecker, and the truth about the crash. The story stayed on the front page for a week. A month later, Julian declared bankruptcy. I didn't even lie about anything. I said innocently to Nora, I just told the truth. Sure you didn't. Nora laughed, patting my head. By the way, Quinton bought Eleanor Kingsley Hospital and put it in your name. Happy now? She wiggled her fingers at me. A sparkling new engagement ring was on her left hand. Dr. Hayes had proposed the night before. Wow, I'm your matchmaker, I said. I wish you both a lifetime of happiness and lots of kids. Old man Quinn was still in the hospital. Quinton was taking good care of him, which is to say, he was making his life as miserable as possible. Layla was a pariah. No one in Talone City would talk to her. Quinn was even worse. The whole city now knew she was mentally ill. She'd completely lost it. She'd snuck into old man Quinn's hospital room and screamed that she was going to kill Elmy and Quinton. How she'd gotten in, we'll never know. Okay, we know. Quinton and Dr. Hayes helped her. What she didn't know was that old man Quinn had just gotten some more bad news. Quinton now owned more than 50 of Eagle River Group. He was the undisputed CEO. Old man Quinn couldn't even get out of bed, let alone run the company. Quinn's little tantrum pushed him over the edge. He slapped her so hard she fell over. Quinn was committed to a psychiatric hospital. and Old Man Quinn never woke up again. Of course, Harold didn't go down without a fight. He leaked every dirty secret he could find about me, that I was his disowned daughter, that I'd been engaged to Julian. The tabloids had a field day. For weeks, I was the most talked about person in Talon City. Harold thought I'd be embarrassed. He thought I'd back down, but I don't embarrass easily. I leaked every single dirty secret about the Hale family and the Quinn family, every skeleton in every closet. Harold's reputation was destroyed forever. I think they should call me the Queen of Talon City Drama, I said to Quentin. He smiled at me. I think you should lay low for a while. He was right. Harold and Julian were blowing up my phone, begging me to stop. I gave Nora full control of the media company, and we left Talon City. We went on our honeymoon. We'd been married for several years by then. We were both in our 30s. We'd been partners and best friends through everything, but we'd never had a real wedding. We were getting married in the Maldives. As I stood under the veil, I asked Quentin the question I'd been asking him for years. Why did you really marry me? He lifted my veil and looked into my eyes. In that moment, I knew it was love at first sight. It was finding someone who understood you. It was two broken people finding home in each other. Some things don't need to be explained, like how I'd miraculously recovered from the crash. Even Dr. Hayes never figured that out. Love is the most irrational thing in the world, and it's the most beautiful. It gives you the strength to face all the darkness, and when you're holding on to each other, you can walk through anything. I saw a million emotions flash through Quentin's eyes. He had a million things he wanted to say, but all he said was, "Because I love you so much." I flipped him off. "You dork." He slipped a huge statement diamond ring onto my finger. "Happy wedding day, Mrs. Quinn."